And now the tribunal wishes to have General Westhoff brought in. General Westhoff, you made a statement before Brigadier, or before Captain J.E. Parnell, did you not?
Der Name des Hauptmanns ist mir nicht bekannt. Ich habe in England eine Erklärung abgegeben.
Yes. On the 13th of June, 1945.
Das ist möglich, ja.
You don't know English, I suppose?
Nein?
Well, I will read you. Has the prosecution got another copy of this document? Yes. Well, Sir David, if you would follow me whilst I read it and draw my attention to any passages which are really relevant.
Yes, well, I'll do that.
In case it's a considerably, rather long document, I don't wish to read it all to the witness. What the tribunal wants to know, General Westhoff, is whether you adhere to this statement, or whether you wish to make any alterations in it. And I will read to you, so that you may remember it, the material passages from the statement.
Jawohl.
I was in charge of the General Department when the shooting of the escaped RAF prisoners of war from Stalag Luft 3 took place. It was the first occasion on which Field Marshal Keitel had sent for me. I went with General von Gravenitz. He had been sent for, and I was to accompany him. A certain number of officers had escaped from the Segan camp. Am I going too fast?
Nein, verstehe.
I don't remember how many, but I believe about 80. When we
Kann ich dem Gericht damit dienen, dass ich eine deutsche Übersetzung, die mir von der Staatsanwaltschaft zur Verfügung gestellt worden ist, dem Angeklagten übergeben? Dem Zeugen. May I say I'm very grateful to Dr. Melton. Das ist hier der erste Teil. Das Teil, ich glaube, bei Ihnen noch egal. Das ist aber nur von dem ersten Teil, den Sie nur so stellen. Damit an sich nicht gut übersetzt, aber es ist
Now, General Westhoff, would you read that statement of yours through as quickly as you can? You will be able to see what are the really material passages, and then tell the tribunal whether that statement is correct.
Jawohl.
ist noch ein Teil der Erklärung, den ich auch von der Staatsanwaltschaft bekommen habe. Es ist eine sehr umfangreiche Zusammenstellung gewesen. Darf ich das dem Zeugen auch noch überreichen?
You mean that he hasn't got the whole document? Has he not got the whole document?
Er hat noch nicht das ganze Dokument vor sich. Ich habe es von der
certainly
Staatsanwaltschaft in 3 Abschnitten bekommen und diese 3 Teile möchte ich ihm jetzt auch geben, wenn er es vollständig haben soll.
The statement that we have here in English is 5 pages long in type and is certified in this way. This appendix contains an accurate translation of oral statements. This appendix contains an accurate translation of oral statements made to me by Major General Westhoff on the 13th of June, 1945, in reply to questions concerning the shooting of 50 RAF officers from Stalag Luft 3, dated this 23rd day of the 9th month of 1945, J.E. Parnell, Captain, Intelligence Corps. Is that on?
Herr Präsident, ich weiß es nicht, ob der General Westhoff vielleicht mehrfach vernommen worden ist. In diesem Dokument hat er auch über das ganze Kriegsgefangenenwesen gesprochen. Also nicht nur über den Fall Sagan. Es handelt sich hier um einen fortlaufenden Bericht und der Zeuge...
Well, the only document which is in evidence is this document, which I have in my hand, which was annexed to the report of Brigadier Clapcott.
Lord, I've looked at the document, the part that Dr. Nelter has, and I think my German is sufficient to identify it. It is the same document. If your Lordship looks at page 2, if your Lordship see the passage, General Inspector General Rettig.
Yes.
Well, my Lord, that's where it starts. And I've checked it, the last paragraph is the same. I cannot remember having received any reports. As far as my German goes, that is the same here. So this part of the document is the last half of the document your Lordship has.
I see, yes.
Yes. Yes, it's the same document. It is
Was
part.
Also ist es nicht nötig, dass er es schreibt.
Dr. Nelter and Sir David, perhaps the best course would be if Sir David put the passages upon which he relies to the witness, and the witness could then be asked whether those were accurate.
Yes.
And Dr. Nelter can ask any questions he wishes to after that.
If your Lordship please.
Witness. Witness. Counsel is going to ask you questions upon this document now, so you needn't go on reading.
You let him have that. The last bit of document, so we'll have the whole. Could you let the witness go? Witness, have you had a chance of reading the first paragraph of the statement?
Jawohl, den habe ich gelesen.
And is that correct? Is that true?
Es sind einige Sachen drin, die nicht ganz richtig sind. Zum Beispiel steht auf der ersten Seite.
Well, let me take it then. Shall I read it? I'll read it to you and see how far it is correct. I was in charge of the General Department, Abteilung Allgemein, when the shooting of the escaped RAF prisoners of war from Stalag Luft 3 took place. That is correct, is it not?
Ja, da fehlt hier, wenn die Erschießung sich ereignete.
Yeah. Now, it was the first occasion on which Feldmarschall Keitel had sent for me. I went with General von Gravenitz. He had been sent for, and I was to accompany him. Is that right?
Jawohl.
A certain number of officers had escaped from the Sagan camp. I can't remember how many, but I believe about 80. That is correct, too. Now, next sentence. When we entered, the Feldmarschall was very excited and nervous and said, "Gentlemen, this is a bad business." Is that correct?
Jawohl.
Then we were always blamed whenever prisoners of war escaped. We couldn't tie them to our apron strings. That's your own comment. Then you go on as to what the Feldmarschall said. This morning, Goering reproached me in the presence of Himmler for having let some more prisoners of war escape. It was unheard of. You go on with your comment, is that then they must have had a row because the camp didn't come under us, it was a GAF camp. Is that correct, that the Feldmarschall said this morning, Goering reproached me in the presence of Himmler for having let some more PW escape, prisoners of war escape. It was unheard of.
Nicht in Himmlers Gegenwart, sondern in Hitlers Gegenwart. In Hitlers Gegenwart.
It ought to be in Hitler's presence.
Jawohl.
Yeah. Now, then the next sentence, all German Air Force camps came directly under the German Air Force itself, but the inspector of prisoner of war camps was in charge of all camps for inspection purposes. I wasn't inspector. That we've had all that explained. I don't think there's any dispute about the organization, so I won't trouble you about that. We've gone into it in this court in some detail, and so unless the tribunal wanted, I didn't intend to trouble this witness again. You say I wasn't inspector yet. General von Gravenitz was inspector, and all camps came under him in matters concerning inspection and administration. Then you say Goering blamed Keitel for having let those men escape. These constant escapes were a bad show. Then Himmler interfered. I can only say what the Feldmarschall told us, and he complained that he'd have to provide another 60,000 or 70,000 men as Landwachen, etc. Is that right? Did the Field Marshal say that? Now, then look the second paragraph. Feldmarschall Keitel said to us, "Gentlemen, these escapes must stop. We must set an example. We shall take very severe measures. I can only tell you that the men who have escaped will be shot. Probably the majority of them are dead already." Keitel said that to us at the conference. Is that correct?
Jawohl.
Then you say we were amazed, as that was a conception we had never come across before. The affair must have happened in March. We were sent to the Feldmarschall in Berlin a few days after the escape, not on that account, but for some other business. We knew they'd escaped, and we were taken by surprise by that declaration at the conference. Then you go on again with your account of the conference. General von Gravenitz intervened at once and said, "But, sir, that's out of the question. Escape isn't a dishonorable offense. That is specially laid down in the convention." Is that correct, that General von Gravenitz said these words?
Der General von Gravenitz hat Einwendungen mit Bezug auf die Genfer Konvention gemacht. Es fehlt aber hier in dem Bericht,
Yes.
dass der Feldmarschall dem General von Gravenitz gesagt hat, es handelte sich um einen Führerbefehl. Das fehlt hier.
Yes, well, if you look at the next sentence that I was going to read to you, you say he, that's the General von Gravenitz, raised these objections, whereupon Keitel said, "I don't care a damn. We discussed it in the Führer's presence, and it cannot be altered." Is that correct? The
Nein, der Feldmarschall hat gesagt, das ist mir gleichgültig. Das ist mir gleichgültig.
Well, I think it would be easier, General, if you told the tribunal now, the best of your recollection, what did the Feldmarschall say after General von Gravenitz had made his objection?
Ich habe dem Gericht darüber eine eidesstattliche Erklärung abgegeben, die ich vielleicht vorlesen darf. Anlässlich der Anwesenheit des Generals von Gravenitz und mir im März 1944 im Hauptquartier machte der Feldmarschall Keitel dem Chef Kriegsgefangenenwesen...
General Westhoff, the tribunal may want that later. It would be easier if you try and stick to this statement and whether it's right or wrong at the moment, and then we'll deal with any other one later on. It's just this point, if you could direct your mind to it. After General von Gravenitz had made his objection, as you've told us, on the ground of the convention, what did the Field Marshal say? What did he say at that point? If you just try and do that, it'd be a great help to us all.
Der Feldmarschall hat dann gesagt, das ist jetzt gleichgültig, wir müssen ein Exempel statuieren.
I thought that you said that he mentioned that there was a Führer's decree to that effect, or a Führer's order, or something of that sort. Did he mention that?
Das hat er vorher schon gesagt, ganz im Anfang, dass es sich hier um einen Führerbefehl handele.
Now, in the next paragraph, you point out in this statement that in this case, I think it's only fair to yourself to read it, the second sentence, but in this case, none of our men, that's your department, men of the Wehrmacht, had shot any of the prisoners of war. I made inquiries at once. Then you say, none of them had been shot by a soldier, but by Gestapo men only, or else police sentries. That proves that probably Himmler, of course I don't know whether he made the suggestion to the Führer or how they arranged it, it should be possible to find that out from Goering, who was present at the conference. Naturally, I don't know. You remember making these answers? Then you say again, at any rate, it is a clear fact that our men didn't shoot any of them. They must all have been shot by policemen. And you point out in the last sentence but in this particular case, only those caught by our people were brought back to the camp, that is, those caught by soldiers. Now, in the next paragraph, you say that you had no authority to give the police orders, repeat that the military didn't shoot any of them, and then in the third the sentence you say, I had a report sent to me at once and told General von Gravenitz, sir, the only thing we can do is to see that no dirty business is carried out where we are in charge. Is that right? Is that correct to describe what you did, General?
Jawohl.
Yeah. Now, you go on to say, you see a sentence or two later, that you were faced with a fait accompli, and then you say, after repeating General von Gravenitz's protest, to the Field Marshal Keitel, he had said that's quite impossible, we can't shoot any people. You say, and how the shooting was carried out, I heard from the representative of the protecting power, Herr Neville of Switzerland. Is that right?
Nein.
What was it? How did you hear of the shooting?
Ich hatte mich an die Gestapo gewandt und wollte die Unterlagen für die Erschießungen haben für das Auswärtige Amt. Und die habe ich nicht bekommen. Der Vertreter der Schweiz, Herr Neville, den ich in das Lager geschickt hatte, kam auf der Rückreise bei mir vorbei. Und von dem habe ich das Einzige erfahren, was ich von diesem Fall überhaupt gehört habe, nämlich, dass anscheinend ein Kriegsgefangener, der in das Lager zurückgekommen war, gesehen hatte, dass die entflohenen Flieger aus dem Görlitzer Gefängnis auf einem Lastkraftwagen schwer gefesselt und bewacht herausgefahren worden seien. Das ist das Einzige, was ich überhaupt von dieser Sache erfahren habe, und ich habe bisher nicht erfahren, auf welche Art und Weise die Flieger umgekommen sind. Die Gestapo hat sich geweigert, mir darüber Auskünfte zu geben.
But it is correct that generally what information you did receive, you received from the representative of the protecting power. I don't know if you remember whether his name was Neville or not. That is right, isn't it, as I understand your answer?
Ich habe die Frage nicht verstanden.
What information you did receive, you tell us that was very little. You received from the representative of Switzerland, the protecting power. Is that right?
Jawohl.
Yeah. Well, now, I want you to deal with the next bit in the statement where you tried to get in touch with the Foreign Office. And if you look down the paragraph, you'll see that you say, at any rate, we didn't get any news, and so it was pointed out to the Feldmarschall that such a state of affairs was impossible, that we had to get in communication with the Foreign Office. Then he emphatically stated that it was forbidden to get in touch with the Foreign Office. Is that correct?
Jawohl.
Now, just to look, I'll read on for 2 sentences. Then the affair was raised in the House of Commons in England, and then a note was sent by our side. Then I was quite suddenly called up by Admiral Berkner, that should be Buerkner, of the Foreign Department, Amtsgruppe Ausland, in the OKW, which keeps contact with the Foreign Office. He called me up by telephone at night and said, "The Feldmarschall has given me orders to prepare an answer for England immediately. What is it all about? I don't know anything about the case." I said, "Herr Admiral, I'm sorry, but General von Gravenitz received strict orders not to talk to anyone about it. Nothing was allowed to be put down in writing either. Apart from that, we ourselves were faced with an accomplished fact. This order was apparently issued by Himmler, and the position was such that we could do nothing more at all about it." Is that a correct account of...
Hier ist wieder das Wort Himmler mit Hitler verwechselt worden.
That should be Hitler.
Jawohl.
Apart from that, that's correct. I mean, in substance, a correct account of the conversation between Admiral Berkner and yourself. In substance, that... Yeah. Now, then you go on to say that Admiral Berkner wanted you to tell him about the affair, and that you only knew what the gentleman from Switzerland had told you, and that you had made various attempts to approach the Gestapo. And then if you look at just before the end of that paragraph, then the Foreign Office itself got into touch and took charge of this affair. Then another of my men, Oberstleutnant Kraft, went to Berchtesgaden while I was on a journey. At that time, a note to England was to be prepared. Then, when we read this note to England in the newspaper, we were all absolutely taken aback. We all clutched our heads, mad. We could do nothing about the affair. Is that correct? Do you say that, and is that correct?
Die Angelegenheit ist dann dem Auswärtigen Amt übergeben worden. Und das Auswärtige Amt hat den Auftrag bekommen, eine Note an England auszufertigen. Zu diesen Besprechungen ist anscheinend der Oberstleutnant Kraft als Sachverständiger für den Fall Sagan, wenn noch Zweifel da waren, um die zu klären, mit herangezogen worden. Das soll aber nicht etwa heißen, dass der Oberstleutnant Kraft in irgendeiner Form an der Ausfertigung der Note beteiligt war. Das ist eine Angelegenheit des Auswärtigen Amtes gewesen. Das Auswärtige Amt hat ihn nur beigezogen, damit, wenn an dem Sachverhalt noch irgendwelche Zweifel waren, der an Ort und Stelle geklärt werden könnte.
Now, General, the next part of the statement I didn't intend to read unless the tribunal wanted it, because you are making quite clear that in your opinion the General Inspector, General Rettig, had nothing to do with the affair at all. And if you accept it from me that that's the substance of the next two paragraphs, I won't trouble you with it in detail. You are making clear that General Rettig had nothing to do with it. Is that right?
Nein.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, I thought if you look at the first sentence, I thought it represented it fairly. You said, look at the first sentence, General Inspector Rettig had nothing to do with it, nothing at all. He did not have any hand in the affair. He was completely excluded from it by the fact that these matters were taken out of his hands. Apparently at that conference with the Führer in the morning, that's to say the conference between Himmler, Feldmarschall Keitel and Goering, which took place in the Führer's presence. Is that right? I only wanted to put it shortly, that you were trying to, quite rightly, if it's true, to give your view that General Rettig had nothing to do with it. Is that right, that first sentence I read to you?
Es soll nur der Generalinspekteur war verantwortlich
You did say, did you say yes? Or?
Der Generalinspekteur war verantwortlich für Fluchtverhinderung, war aber in diesem Falle nicht beteiligt, hat nichts mit der Angelegenheit zu tun gehabt.
Yeah, yes, that's all right. That was what there's no difference between us on that. That's what I was suggesting to you. Now, I'd like you to look, if you, the next paragraph also deals with General Rötig. Then after that, you explain the position of that the officers. You say this. I only know an order existed that only officers, and I believe only those who were caught by the Gestapo, should be handed over to them. Then you say that, talk about intelligence. I didn't want to trouble you about that. And then if you would look at the next paragraph, I received a report from the camp saying so-and-so many men had been shot whilst attempting to escape. I didn't hear from the Gestapo at all. It's like this. The reports are sent to the camp. Then the camp informed us that a certain number of men had been recaptured and a certain number shot. Things are reported in that way. The Gestapo sent me no information whatsoever. They merely told us casually, whenever we made inquiries, that they'd recaptured a certain number. Now, the next sentence I want you to look at carefully. The Feldmarschall gave us detailed instructions to publish a list at the camp, giving the names of those shot as a warning. That was done. That was a direct order that we couldn't disobey. Is that correct?
Es ist befohlen worden, dass von allen Erschossenen zum abschreckenden Beispiel in dem Lager eine Liste ausgehängt werden sollte.
And then the next sentence, did you see, it says, apparently the bodies were burnt and the ashes put into urns and sent to the camp. And then there's the arrangement about the burial. And then you say that that raised great difficulties. You see, a sentence or two later, you say that matters of that sort were always passed to higher authority. They went to the party chancellor, and then there was hell to pay. The cremation of prisoners of war is forbidden. And then later on, when you say that you raised the question of it being contrary to the convention, you said that whenever I addressed the officers' corps and said, gentlemen, we only act according to the convention, someone from higher authority, from the party chancellery, arrived the following day and said, gentlemen, the convention is a scrap of paper which doesn't interest us. Is that correct as to the general procedure?
Das ist nicht ganz richtig. Das Oberkommando der Wehrmacht hat den Standpunkt vertreten, die Konvention zu beachten. Das Kriegsgefangenenwesen als solches in Deutschland war aber nur nach außen hin in Händen des Oberkommandos der Wehrmacht. Bestimmend über die Kriegsgefangenen waren die Parteidienststellen und die Wirtschaftsdienststellen. So musste zum Beispiel meine Dienststelle jede Verfügung, die herausging, dem Vertreter der Parteikanzlei vorlegen, und der bestimmte, wie die Verfügung herauszugehen hatte, nicht etwa das Oberkommando.
Well, then you deal, I don't want to go into it in detail, with your interview with Bormann's deputy Friedrich, who at the party chancellery, and then in the next long paragraph beginning, the Air Force prisoner of war camps were under German Air Force administration. It says in that paragraph, after you talked about the question of handing over prisoners of war camps to Himmler's organization, you see the words, "We were told all men who get away are to be shot." It may be the beginning of another paragraph. It happens to come at it is. It's the beginning of the next paragraph in the English version. Do you see it? After a long paragraph about Air Force camps.
Welche Seite bitte? Welche Seite bitte?
Well, the trouble is the pages are different, but it begins, "We were told all men who get away are to be shot." It's the third last paragraph of the document. If you start from the end of the document, you'll see a paragraph I can't remember. The one before is, "We arranged with the Feldmarschall," and it's the one before that. "We were told all men who get away are to be shot." You got it? "We were told all men who got away are to be shot. The Feldmarschall prohibited anything concerning this to be put into writing. Nothing at all. Only the camp was to be informed in order to put them in the picture. I discussed the matter with Gravenitz once more. I can't tell you the exact details anymore. We contacted the Gestapo regarding the return of the bodies. We had to have them back. Then von Gravenitz left for the front." Now, it's the next bit I want you to look at carefully. "I then said to Oberstleutnant Kraft, I won't do it like that. I'm going to cover myself at all costs so that we are not involved in it afterwards. It's true the Feldmarschall has forbidden it to be put in writing, but I want to have it in writing. It must be signed by the Führer." Now that's what you said to Kraft. It's comparatively unimportant. But now
Ja, das stimmt nicht ganz.
now tell us, tell us what you'd like altered in it.
Ich wollte eine schriftliche Sache haben, die vom Feldmarschall gezeichnet war, und habe aus dem Grunde eine Aktennotiz draufgegeben, in der die Besprechung festgelegt war, und hatte somit eine Unterschrift des Feldmarschalls bei meiner Dienststelle für eventuelle Fälle, damit ich etwas Schriftliches in der Hand hatte, was auch tatsächlich stimmte.
Yeah, well, now just look at the next sentence. I think that entirely agrees with what you've said. Contrary to Feldmarschall Keitel's orders, I pretended that I hadn't understood properly. I worked the thing out on paper. I said to Oberstleutnant Kraft, I want to have the word shoot included so that Keitel can see it in writing. He may adopt a different attitude then. When I got the thing back, he had written the following in the margin. I didn't definitely say shoot. I said hand over to the police or hand over to the Gestapo. So that was a partial climb down.
Das stimmt nicht ganz. diese Angelegenheit.
Well, now, what change would you like to make in that, General?
Da habe ich klar ausgesagt in meiner eidesstattlichen Erklärung, dass der Feldmarschall darauf an den Rand geschrieben hat, erschießen habe ich nicht gesagt, aber der Gestapo überstellen.
Yes. Well, is that the same as is in this statement? Says that he wrote in the margin, I didn't definitely say shoot, I said hand over to the police or hand over to Gestapo. Is that it?
Jawohl.
That's right. But I wanted this to be quite clear, General. The draft order or note of information that you had put up to the Feldmarschall contained the word shoot. Your note contained the word shoot.
Jawohl.
Yeah. Now, there's only one other bit, and you go on to say we arranged with the Feldmarschall to have the matter submitted to the Führer. We had the feeling that there was something not quite in order. And then you say that you had to approach the police authorities on a slightly lower level, and about 10 lines down, you say this: in the end, I couldn't get where I wanted with this affair, so I went to Berlin myself. It was the only time I ever saw Kaltenbrunner, and said to Kaltenbrunner, this matter is still outstanding. It should be submitted to the Führer. It can't carry on like this. A decision must be made sometime, but apart from that, I am of the opinion that the whole affair should be dropped. The whole thing is madness. It has already let us into so much unpleasantness and is so monstrous that I am still of the opinion that this affair should either be stopped in some way or the Führer be dissuaded from continuing it any further. Is that generally, again in substance, correct version of what you said to the defendant Kaltenbrunner?
Das handelt sich aber nicht hier direkt um den Fall Sagan, sondern um einen Befehl, der im Anschluss an Sagan herausgegeben werden sollte und der auf 2 Wegen an den Führer gebracht werden sollte. Einmal auf dem Weg über den Chef OKW und das andere Mal über Himmler. Und dieser Befehl war im Entwurf dem Feldmarschall Keitel vorgelegt und dieser Entwurf war dann zur Gestapo gegangen. Und die Gestapo saß auf dem Entwurf und machte da nicht weiter. Ich habe auch nie dahinter sehen können, warum nicht. Und aus diesem Grund habe ich Herrn Kaltenbrunner seinerzeit selbst darauf angesprochen.
What was this the order in its final form that escaped prisoners of war should be handed over to the Gestapo or the police?
Jawohl.
Yes, I see. So this was General, if I may have your attention, this was really dealing with the future, was it? This was dealing with what was to be done in the future. Then, my lord, I don't think one need go into it in detail again.